You bunch of ratbags in Westminster, you don't have a mandate for your cuts. For God's sake, for your cuts. There is no democratic mandate. There is no economic rationale. Economically, it's daft at a time of recession to cut public spending, because all it does is reduce the amount of spending in the economy generally, which makes the depression even worse. It is political cruelty. That's all it is. Political cruelty. Austerity, brothers and sisters, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Austerity is punishing the poor for the greed and the mistakes of the rich. That's what austerity is. And we want you to vote for solidarity, to go into that parliament and say, it's now time to stop complying and start defying the cuts. That's what we want in the Scottish Parliament. We also want you to vote for us so that we can be absolutely crystal clear that this country of ours is not for environmental ruin by any us or any other fracking company. Not an inch. Not an inch of Scotland, either on land or of sea, not an inch of Scotland should be allowed to be fracked or for underground coal gasification to take place. It's environmentally unsound, it's dangerous, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary. We have an abundance of wind, of wave, of solar power. We should be investing even more so that we become the European leader in clean energy production. That's the road that we should be going down. How dare you Fergus Ewings in the world sitting down with that Ratcliffe, bloody rat by name, rat by nature, Jim Ratcliffe of Ineos, sitting down with a guy who dared back in 2012, 2013 to hold this country to ransom. Do you remember what he did?
And was successful.
Do you remember what he did? He turned around to the trade unions and he said to them, you need to take a wage cut, you need to reduce your pensions, you need to agree to job losses, you need to agree to your elected trade union representatives being sacked, and you need to agree to a 3-year no-strike deal. Unheard of. Inhuman. Against your human rights. To take away your right to withdraw your labour. And of course, the unions fought him. And Ratcliffe said, well, if you don't accept it, I'm closing down Grangemouth. I'm pulling out, I'm closing down Grangemouth. Grangemouth is the heart of the Scottish economy. It's the only and the main oil refinery we have. And this swine, this Texas billionaire living in a yacht to avoid paying taxes, held us to ransom. We shouldn't be inviting any of us to have stalls at SNP conferences. We should be inviting any of us to go on the yacht and get the hell out of Scotland. That's what we should do. An absolute disgrace that you have an oil refinery and it's owned privately. Solidarity wants that to be part of the public wealth of Scotland, owned and controlled by the public. Never again should we be held to ransom by some Texas billionaire or any other multi-corporation boss who thinks he can hire and fire at will in order to feed his greed. Never again. No fracking. No underground coal gasification and no nuclear weapons in Scotland. That's the message. We also want you to send us there so that we can introduce, or rather reintroduce, because it is important here to make this point. 16 years the Parliament has been going. 16 years. Throughout that 16 years, most people on the social and progressive side of politics have accepted that the council tax is an unfair tax. Why would it not be? It was a Tory tax. It was their sop to get rid of the poll tax. It was their substitution for the poll tax. You can be the richest person in Scotland, and you will live in a multi-million pounds mansion, a castle. You'll only ever pay under the council tax 3 times more the grubbiest, smallest wee council house in Ayr or anywhere else in Scotland. Because the way the council tax works is there is only a 3 times difference. So you can have a 300 times income difference, but you'll only have a 3 times council tax difference. It's an unfair tax system that takes no account of ability to pay. We want to introduce a Scottish service tax. A Scottish service tax that introduces 5 new income tax bands. First band is 0 to 10 grand a year. 0 to 10 grand a year. The tax band is 0. Automatic exemption. No filling in all these forms that they force our pensioners to fill in. Means-tested forms, embarrassing, undignified. That's why people don't claim so many benefits, particularly the pensioners, because they're embarrassed. Well, they'll no need to fill any forms in under the service tax. They'll be automatically exempt, and over 80% of pensioners won't pay a single penny. From 10,000 to 30,000, you're going to have a band of 4.5%. You're then going to have a higher band for 30 to 50, a higher band for 50 to 90, and then you're going to have a 20% band for incomes above £90,000 a year. In other words, we're actually going to introduce a radical redistributive tax system that was researched in full in 2006 because I introduced it to the Scottish Parliament, researched, analysed, cut to shreds by all of their expert economists, and not one of them could lay a glove on the fact that this new tax system would have raised £500 million more for local authority jobs and services than the council tax, but it would have raised it in a fairer fashion because 78% of Scots would pay less and 22% of Scots would pay more. And who's the ones that are paying more? Those on 50 grand a year and more would be paying more, and so they should, because they can afford it. That's the reality of redistributive tax. You can't have a redistributive tax system that doesn't have some people paying more. Just like you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. We're not afraid to say that you should tax the wealthy more. That's what the service tax does. Isn't it incredible that 16 years into the Scottish Parliament, SNP and Greens say they're against the council tax? There's only been one single bill brought forward to replace the council tax, and it was me. Interested? I would encourage you to go and look at the debate in 2006. It's a great wee debate in March 2006. If you look up the Scottish Parliament website, under the heading of the bill, Council Tax Abolition and Service Tax Introduction. That's the bill there that was introduced to the Scottish Parliament. And I was opposed by John Swinney. John Swinney opposed this, and he opposed it, and go and check it for yourselves. They opposed it on the basis that under the service tax there would be a national rate of payment set by the Scottish Government, collected by the tax revenue and distributed to all of the 32 local authorities. And John, in opposition, said, we can't support this because it's not really a local tax, Because it's not set locally and it's not collected locally. I made the point, I said, well, help me a minute, John, what are you wanting? 32 different rates of taxation across the whole of Scotland, so that the well-off areas in Scotland don't have to charge much, but the poorest areas in Scotland are going to have to charge more, because that's what you've got with the council tax. Go and look at it. You go and look at the highest council taxes in Scotland. Where are they? West Dumbarton, Dundee, Glasgow. Why? Because there is a bigger demand for services in those cities, so they need to charge more money. Where's the cheapest ones? Your East Renfrewshires of the country, your East Dumbarton shires. That's where you get your lower council taxes. I say to John, don't be silly. Don't have 32 different rates of different taxes, and don't have it collected locally, because it's much more costly to do that. Much better to use the tax revenue system, collect it centrally, set it centrally, and then distribute it according to need across Scotland. SNP voted against it. That was in March of 2000 and I actually say 2006. I actually think it was March 2007. Need to check that one. It's either March 2006 or 2007. The point is this. By May of 2007, lo and behold, rub the wee brass figurine and the genie jumps out, SNP come up with a local income tax policy. Guess what? Set nationally, collected nationally. The very two reasons that were used to oppose the service tax proposal were changed for the purposes of the 2007 Scottish general election. I've got to say, and I've got lots of respect for a lot of the things the SNP have done in government, but I've got to say this to you. Where's your bill to get rid of the council tax? Freezing the council tax. Freezing the council tax may benefit people who know from one year to the next they're not going to be paying more on their council tax, but it doesn't reduce their bill, they're still having to pay it. And categorically and critically, it means less money for local authorities. So freezing council tax isn't the answer to an unfair tax system. Replacing it with a fair redistributive tax is the answer. Final point I would make, brothers and sisters, the final reason I want you to vote solidarity on May the 5th is this. And I've talked about introducing bills, just so that you're aware. I held up there the council tax abolition, service tax introduction bill. I could have held up the proposed provision of Railway Passenger Services Scotland bill, which was to take the railways back into public ownership. I could have held up the abolition of pindons and warrant sales bill. I could have held up the free school meals bill. I could have held up the abolition of public sales of air guns bill. They were the bills that were all introduced to the Scottish Parliament. By the way, we lost 4 of them. We never got 4 of them. But can anybody tell me whether free school meals is still an issue in Scotland? Of course it is. We might have lost the bill, but we raised the issue. Air guns. Oh yeah, we lost the bill. But the Scottish Government's about to introduce the licensing regime that I called for in my bill. Public ownership of railways. We lost the bill, but we now even have the Labour Party in Scotland saying that they support public ownership of the railways. And of course, we get the abolition of pindons and warrant sales. The first private member's bill to be introduced, just so you know that we stick to our words. I was elected in May 1999. By September 1999, the abolition of pindons and warrant sales bill was introduced. 3 months. 3 months is all it took us to make good on our promise to get rid of pindons and warrants. That's the type of record, political record, that we are fighting on and that we are standing on. We want to introduce a democracy bill. We want to introduce a bill that writes into our standing orders that if you as an elected member breach a promise that you make to your constituents in the course of your election campaign, then there is a trigger available for your constituents to raise an online petition, and if they can get 5% of the constituency to sign that petition, you can be recalled for a by-election. No waiting 4 years or 5 years. We're fed up with MSPs saying vote for us and we'll vote to save the local hospital, only to see them vote to close the local hospital a couple of months later. Alistair Carmichael's feet when they touched the ground if we had a recall bill in the Scottish Parliament. But that democracy bill isn't just going to have a right of recall in it. We also want the Scottish Parliament to address the fact that the MSP's salaries and conditions are out of touch with ordinary people's lives. We don't want MSPs to be getting paid £59,000 a year. We want MSPs to be paid the average wage of a skilled worker. If firefighters and crane drivers can live on £30,000 a year, why can an MSP not live on £30,000 a year? Perhaps it would keep them more in touch with the everyday realities of life of the people they're representing. We want people to be sent to the Scottish Parliament as shop stewards for the working class of the areas they live in. That's what we want them to be sent to. Final feature of this democracy bill. I'm finishing this, I promised you, I'm sorry I've spoken already. The final provision in this democracy bill that we're going to introduce. And some people say, Tommy, it's not really that important, is it? Well, given the statistics that Kayla gave you tonight in terms of fuel poverty, in terms of food banks, yeah, okay, it's not up there as a priority. But you know what? I think we have to stop getting MSPs to lie in Parliament. Lie in Parliament. What do I mean by that? Well, you see, in 1999 when I was elected, I didn't know that the first thing I had to do was go and lie in Parliament. Because the first thing I had to do was go and swear an oath of allegiance to the Crown. An oath of allegiance to the Crown. Now, I don't care whether some of you believe in the Crown. That's up to you. Believe in the monarchy. That's up to yourselves. I'm not going to have a go at you. But I don't. I don't think anyone who's not elected, is not accountable, cannot be kicked out by the people, should have any say in my life. That's what I think. And I toyed. We know swearing the oath. And I was told I had 3 months to make up my mind, after which I would lose my seat and there would be a by-election. That's how firmly ensconced is the swearing of the oath to the Scottish Parliament. A modern Parliament. Remember all this stuff? This is a modern Parliament for the new century, 21st century. And we're still swearing an oath to a centuries-old monarchical system. Brothers and sisters, part of your democracy bill, I want a new oath for the MSPs to sign. I want the MSPs to go and swear an oath to the people of Scotland as the sovereign people. The only sovereign people that they should recognise, the only people that they should owe a duty of integrity and honesty to, is the people of Scotland, not an unelected crown. Brothers and sisters, I hope you've heard enough tonight to say to yourself, I'm giving my second vote of solidarity. I am going to give my second vote of solidarity. One, because I like what they're saying. I support their policies. I think they're good ideas. But also because I want to maximise the number of pro-independence MSPs elected. That's that's why we're going to use our second votes across the whole of Scotland to send a message loud and clear to that Westminster Parliament. You may have won the battle in September, but you have not won the war. Our dream lives on in our hearts, and we will be free. We will build a new and a better Scotland, and independence for us isn't the end. It's only the beginning of the journey to transform Scotland into a better, more equal country. Thanks very much for listening.
What can I say for that? Good night. Tony, thank you very much indeed for your words of hope and your vision of inspiration. I'm going to open it up now just for a few questions, but at the same point in time, can I just say that obviously Solidarity isn't a very wealthy party, and we're going to pay our bills. We don't have any multi-millionaire donors or whatever else, so we're going to pass on a wee vote. You can use whatever you can afford. Just